A massive discovery has been made deep inside the Oak Island money pit, throwing away all theories made until now. For the first time, real evidence of a man-made structure underground has been found, original and potentially holding something the world has hunted for over 200 years. The data is solid, and the hunt has shifted from what if to what's next. The team from Dumas Contracting began digging deeper into the garden shaft, which was about 23 feet long. The excavated material was not just wet and heavy, but mucky, thick, unnatural, suggesting someone had packed it down on purpose. The team knew what that meant, as it meant someone had sealed something important. Evidence came in the form of pieces of timber pulled from the shaft, dated proven to be from 1735. Water samples drawn from within the shaft showed high traces of gold, not folklore, and it seemed to be the heart of the treasure. The garden shaft was not just a collapsed dig site, but an old, well-crafted structure, sitting only a few feet away from a known underground void. This void aligned with historical theories, suggesting a possible chamber or tunnel. The team reinforced the shaft with new 8-foot sets and climbed deeper toward a total planned depth of 80 feet. For the first time in Oak Island's modern history, they decided to go inside to explore. They entered the Inductance Spectrum 120 camera, a sleek cylindrical tool that could see in the dark pan and zoom into shadows. The camera showed tight spaces, preserved walls, and glistening moisture that hinted at movement activity. Scott Barlow stared at the live feed with a stunned look as the area was smaller than expected and more confined. Rick Lagena, who first read about Oak Island as a 10-year-old boy, suited up safety checks and ensured the rebuilt shaft was safe to enter. In conclusion, the discovery of the Oak Island money pit has changed the game for the Lega brothers and their team, as they now stand at the very edge of the truth and dig straight into it before digging any deeper. Rick and his team, led by Roger Fortin, embarked on a journey to uncover the hidden treasure of Oak Island. The journey began with a visit to the garden shaft, where they were greeted by the sight of original timbers and human design. The shaft was deep and had survived at a level around 50 feet. Rick and his team began drilling against the wood, testing for hollows, tunnels, and chambers. As the shaft reached 93 feet, Rick and his team were told to stop as time had run out and permits to dig deeper were not in place. The team had the signal and the tech but couldn't break through. As they waited at the edge of discovery, Rick scanned the bottom of the shaft, still hearing the sound of Gary Drayton's detector. He knew that the signal was not a fluke, but something valuable buried just beyond the shaft. The team's options were limited, but they turned to analysis planning projection. Gary Drayton's CTX 3030 was built for harsh environments and filtered out modern clutter, telling the difference between iron and treasure. The signal below the shaft mattered so much that they re-examined water samples taken near the same level where the hit occurred. They found high traces of gold and silver, which was lab-tested evidence and not from the outside world. Combining the wood drill with the wood they had struck earlier, they discovered a tunnel running westward toward a place they called the Baby Blob, a zone marked by previous scans as a potential treasure chamber. The tunnel was there, and the shaft was sitting right on its edge. A new plan was taking shape, and Rick and Marty returned to the shaft one final time that season, not with tools but with intent. As they looked around the base of the shaft, they realized that the timbers underfoot were original, centuries old. The structural preservation down there was shocking, and there were gaps behind the shaft spaces that weren't part of the dig. The answer had to be close, and Gary Drayton descended once more into the garden shaft, with the entire team watching. In the end, the team knew this was their last chance at finding the treasure. Rick and Marty's detector swept slowly and carefully, beeping again, indicating that the search for the treasure was far from over. The story revolves around the discovery of a non-ferrous metallic solid in the garden shaft beneath Oak Island. The shaft is not just a reconstructed access point, but a gateway to the island's surface, where the past is bleeding through and signals from below are still present. Gary Drayton's metal detector, calibrated to ignore noise, chirped loudly at the base of the shaft, indicating something real was down there. Rick and Marty stood on thick planks, feeling every vibration, knowing they were surrounded by history and possibly treasure. The structure beneath their boots told a silent story, as the timbers were arranged cut with intention, not a collapse. The team had drilled in the money pit region using data from sonar and seismic scans, tracking voids, tunnels, and anomalies. One anomaly, marked at approximately 95 feet, was believed to be a chamber. A tunnel led toward it, which ran westward from the exact area where the garden shaft sat. This stopped the drill and triggered the detector. The season ended when operations paused, but the mines behind Oak Island continued to be explored. The team gathered recalibrated footage, samples, and echoes to ensure precision next season. They decided to drill into the tunnel instead of beside it, preparing for the snowfall and mud freezing while permits were secured. Additional scans shown that there was a possibility of metal content in a number of different zones inside the area, not only in the water, but also embedded in the soil. The term that was utilized was gold signature, and the signatures in question were concentrated, which suggests that they were contained or perhaps stored. As a result of this information, a variety of beliefs concerning the Templar Knights, Spanish galleons, and Masonic vaults were rekindled. In addition to serving as a zone for exploration, the garden shaft also served as a point of access and a departure point. When the Dumas team left the island, they left behind the most advanced underground infrastructure that Oak Island had ever seen in its modern age. This was a stabilized shaft that was reinforced to a height of 80 feet and had the ability to breach laterally into chambers that were close. Oak Island, located in Canada, has been the site of a crew that has been looking for a long-lost treasure for generations. Over the course of their investigation, they have discovered hints that something concealed and preserved was concealed beneath the lowest point of the garden shaft. Due to legal restrictions, the weather, concerns about safety, and the passage of time, they were forced to cease operations as the season came to a close. On the other hand, they ended up returning with the shaft, gold traces, wood that had been struck by the drill, and a rectangular image that had been taken by a high-def camera. In preparation for the return winter, which was not a break, but rather a buildup of the garden shaft, the team made preparations. Through the use of Drayton's CTX 3030 detector, which was updated with water-capable coils, it was planned to conduct additional investigations into the box-shaped anomaly that was detected. Across the entire island, the team was not operating in dispersed directions for the very first time. With each map, reading, and sample leading down to the base of the shaft, the search was concentrated on the same place throughout the entire process. With the help of fiber optic cameras and robotic probes, the subsequent operation would consist of reconnaissance, which would involve drilling horizontally from the shaft at strategic depths. A network of eyes would be established underneath to search for cavities, artifacts, and indications of man-made engineering during the subsequent operation, which would be carried out in a sideways fashion. The group was aware that this was more than just a treasure, it was historically significant. Rick, the head of the team, had already begun lining up the team when the first signs of thawing appeared. This would not only include exploring the shaft, but it would also involve logging, scanning, filming, and analyzing it in real time. Community-based First Nations organizations were consulted in order to guarantee that historical sensitivity was respected. When Rick spoke in the final war room of the year, he did not talk about coming to terms with things, but rather about moving on to new chapters. He reminded the group that although they were not the ones who started the story, they could be the ones who ended it. Would it be possible that now is the moment that Oak Island finally reveals its most significant response? Or will the next chapter of The Shaft disclose something even more significant? In light of the fact that the world is not yet prepared for the revelation, the team is continuing their hard efforts to discover the truth that lies behind the riddle.